boy refused to leave his baby sister's room at night. When the father decided to investigate, the reason left him horrified. Started as an endearing quirk, or so Adam and Emily thought. Henry, their curious and imaginative 8-year-old, had taken to sleeping on the floor of his baby sister Charlotte's room. It began a few weeks after Charlotte's birth. A change in routine they attributed to Henry adjusting to no longer being the sole center of attention. "I just want to be close to her," Henry said when Emily tucked him in next to the crib one evening. "To make sure she's okay." Emily smiled, brushing back his unruly hair. "She's okay, sweetheart. She's safe here with us." But Henry shook his head. "Not safe enough." The comment nagged at Emily, but Adam shrugged it off. "He's just adjusting," Adam said over dinner. "This whole big brother thing, it's a phase. Let him get it out of his system." Still, Emily wasn't so sure. There was something in Henry's voice, something too serious for an 8-year-old. But she didn't push it. Not yet. Weeks passed, and Henry's phase showed no signs of ending. Every night, he dragged his blanket and pillow into the nursery, refusing to sleep in his own room. During the day, he seemed restless and distracted, his eyes flicking nervously to Charlotte whenever she cooed or fussed. The situation escalated one evening when Adam decided to enforce a rule. "Henry," he said firmly, guiding him back to his own bed, "you're a big boy now. Charlotte's fine, and you need to sleep in your room like everyone else." Henry burst into tears, clutching Adam's hand. "Please, Dad. Please don't make me leave her alone." "Henry," Adam said, his patience wearing thin, "what are you so scared of? There's nothing in the house to hurt her." But Henry shook his head violently, his sobs breaking through the quiet of the house. "You don't know," he whispered. "I have to protect her. I have to." That night, Emily found herself lying awake, Henry's words echoing in her mind. She had noticed other changes in him. How he avoided the hallway near the nursery during the day or refused to play in the living room if the baby monitor wasn't turned on. The boy who once loved exploring every corner of their house now seemed afraid of it. When Adam crawled into bed beside her, Emily voiced her concerns. "Adam, don't you think this is more than just a phase? He's scared of something." "He's scared because we're indulging him," Adam replied, though his voice carried a hint of doubt. "We just need to be firm. He'll adjust." But Emily wasn't convinced, and as she drifted into a fitful sleep, her unease only grew. The next day, Henry's behavior grew stranger. As Emily carried Charlotte to the nursery for her nap, Henry stood frozen in the hallway, his small face pale. "Don't put her there," he said suddenly, his voice barely above a whisper. "What?" Emily asked, startled. "Don't put her in her crib," he repeated, stepping closer. "It's not safe." Emily knelt, setting a hand on his shoulder. "Henry, what's going on? Why isn't it safe?" Henry looked past her, his eyes fixed on the crib. "It's the wall," he whispered. "I hear things in the wall." A chill ran down Emily's spine. "What kind of things?" Henry hesitated, his small hands twisting the hem of his shirt. "I don't know," he said finally, "but I think it's watching her." As the weeks went by, Henry's behavior only grew more intense. He refused to sleep anywhere but the nursery, even rejecting the idea of camping out in the living room or spending a night in his parents' bed. During the day, he was often found sitting quietly by Charlotte's crib, his small frame tense, his eyes darting toward the walls as though expecting something to emerge. "Henry, why don't you go play for a while?" Emily suggested one afternoon, kneeling beside him. "I have to stay," he replied without looking at her. "I have to watch her." Emily's heart sank. She stroked his hair, trying to find the right words. "Sweetheart, I know you love Charlotte, but you don't need to protect her all the time. Mommy and Daddy are here." Henry's gaze remained fixed on the crib. Not always. The growing tension in the house began to spill into Adam and Emily's conversations. Adam brushed off Henry's behavior as a reaction to the family's recent changes. "He's adjusting," Adam insisted as they cleaned up the kitchen one evening. "Charlotte's a big shift for him. He'll settle down eventually." Emily set down a dishcloth, her frustration bubbling to the surface. "This isn't just about attention, Adam. He's scared." Have you seen how he acts around the nursery? It's like he's on guard duty. Adam sighed, leaning back against the counter. So what are you saying? We take him to a psychologist because he's being a protective big brother? That's a bit extreme. Emily shook her head, exasperated. It's not just protective. He won't leave her alone for a second. He barely sleeps. Something is wrong, Adam. But Adam shrugged off her concerns, retreating behind a wall of practicality. He's fine. He's a kid. They do weird things sometimes. Emily wasn't so sure. The breaking point came one evening when Emily went to check on Charlotte after dinner. She stopped in the hallway, her chest tightening at the sight before her. Henry sat slumped beside the crib, his knees drawn up to his chest. Silent tears streamed down his cheeks, dripping onto the floor. "Henry," she called softly, stepping into the room. He didn't respond, his small body trembling. Emily knelt beside him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Sweetheart, what's wrong?" Henry finally looked up, his face streaked with tears. "I can't leave," he whispered, his voice cracking. "If I leave, it'll hurt her." Emily's heart broke. She pulled him into a tight hug, murmuring softly, "Nothing's going to hurt her. Promise." But Henry shook his head, burying his face in her shoulder. "You don't understand," he sobbed. "It's here. It's always here." Emily tried to comfort him, but his fear was unshakable. That night, she sat down with Adam, her face pale and drawn. "We need to take this seriously," she said, her voice firm. "Something is really wrong, Adam." Adam frowned, guilt flickering in his eyes. "You really think we need professional help?" "I don't know what else to do," Emily admitted. "But we can't keep brushing this off. He's scared out of his mind. And I don't think it's just his imagination." Adam sat back, his jaw tightening as he absorbed her words. "Okay," he said finally. "We'll figure something out." But deep down, Adam couldn't shake the feeling that whatever was happening in their home wasn't something a psychologist could fix. Adam's unease had grown too heavy to ignore. Emily's words, Henry's nightly rituals, the tears by the crib. It all gnawed at him. Determined to uncover the truth, he decided to stay awake and observe Henry one night. He positioned himself in the hallway, hidden in the shadows, just outside the nursery. It didn't take long. Shortly after they had tucked him into his bed, Henry's door creaked open. The boy emerged quietly, carrying his blanket and pillow as he shuffled toward Charlotte's room. Adam followed silently, his breath shallow. In the nursery, Henry set up his spot on the floor as usual. But instead of curling up to sleep, he sat upright, staring at the wall near Charlotte's crib. He didn't move, his posture stiff, his gaze unblinking. Hours passed, and Adam found himself growing restless. He was about to give up and go back to bed when Henry's head tilted slightly, as if he were listening for something. A moment later, Adam heard it too. A faint, rhythmic sound coming from the wall. It was barely audible but unmistakable. A soft, shuffling noise. Then silence. Henry whispered, "It's back." Adam's stomach turned, and he forced himself to stay quiet, retreating to his room without revealing that he had been watching. He lay awake for the rest of the night, the sound replaying in his mind. The next morning, Adam decided to act. While Emily was busy with Charlotte, he slipped into the nursery and began inspecting the walls. At first, everything seemed normal, just painted plaster and smooth corners. But as he knelt by the crib, his hand brushed against something unusual. A faint seam ran along the base of the wall, almost invisible unless you were looking for it. Adam leaned closer and pressed against the seam. The panel shifted slightly. His pulse quickened as he fetched a flashlight and pried the panel open, revealing a narrow opening just large enough for someone to crawl through. Inside the cavity, the beam of his flashlight illuminated the disturbing truth. Crumpled food wrappers, empty water bottles, and a filthy, threadbare blanket. It was a makeshift hiding spot, hidden in plain sight. Adam's throat tightened. Someone had been living there. Recently. He closed the panel quickly, his hands shaking. His first instinct was to tell Emily, but something stopped him. She was already on edge, and the last thing he wanted was to frighten her further, especially with Henry's strange behavior. He needed to figure this out first. That evening, as Adam was reading to Henry in the living room, he noticed the boy watching him closely. It wasn't until the story was over and Henry was climbing into bed that he spoke. "Dad?" Henry whispered as Adam tucked him in. "Yes, buddy? You found it, didn't you?" Henry's voice was calm, but his small hands gripped the blanket tightly. Adam froze, his pulse quickening. "Found what, Henry?" "The hiding place," Henry said softly, his eyes wide and serious. "You need to close it. Close it for good." "What do you know about it?" Adam asked, crouching beside the bed. Henry hesitated, then whispered, "He's still here." Adam's heart pounded. "Who's still here?" Henry didn't answer, instead pulling the blanket over his head and curling into a ball. No amount of coaxing could get another word out of him that night. Adam barely slept. The image of the makeshift nest in the wall haunted him, and Henry's words only added to his growing fear. The next day, Adam sealed the panel as best as he could with nails and heavy tape, but it didn't feel like enough. When Henry saw what Adam had done, his face tightened. "You have to make it so he can't come back," he said. "Promise, Dad." "I'll do everything I can," Adam replied, but the boy's serious tone left him unsettled. He couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't just about someone hiding in their house. It was about someone watching. Adam couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to uncover. The hidden panel in the nursery was troubling enough, but Henry's insistence that he's still here gnawed at his thoughts. That morning, after dropping Henry at school, Adam called the realtor who had sold them the house. "I need to know about the previous owners," Adam said, his voice tight with urgency. The realtor hesitated. "Well, the house had been a rental property for a long time before the owners sold it to you. I don't know much about the tenants." "Why? Is something wrong?" Adam paused, debating how much to reveal. "We've noticed unusual things, noises. It seems like someone might have been living here without our knowledge." "Oh," the realtor's voice grew cautious. "There were some odd complaints. One of the previous families mentioned noises in the walls and things going missing. Nothing major, just little items like utensils or books. They thought it was kids being careless. The owner dismissed it as an old house creaking." The words sent a chill down Adam's spine. "And no one investigated further?" The realtor gave an awkward laugh. "Not that I know of. Look, these older homes always have quirks. I'm sure there's a reasonable explanation." Adam didn't respond. He hung up and stared at his phone for a long moment, his unease deepening. That afternoon, Adam found himself watching Henry more closely. The boy had grown more withdrawn, his nervous energy filling the house like static electricity. Every time Emily left the room with Charlotte, Henry's gaze followed her, his little face tight with worry. "Dad," Henry said that evening as they sat at the dinner table, his voice unusually serious. "Don't let Charlotte stay in her room alone. Not ever." Adam put down his fork, exchanging a glance with Emily. "Why do you say that, buddy?" "Because he's still there," Henry whispered, his voice trembling. "And he's waiting." Adam's stomach twisted, but he forced a calm expression. "We've closed it up, Henry. No one can get in." Henry shook his head. "That's not enough." That night, as Emily rocked Charlotte to sleep, she noticed Adam pacing in the hallway. "Are you going to tell me what's going on?" she asked, her tone sharp. "You've been tense for days." And Henry's acting worse. "It's nothing," Adam lied. "I'm just tired." Emily frowned but didn't push him further. Yet, as she walked past the nursery, a nagging thought lingered. What is Adam not telling me? When bedtime came, Henry refused to sleep in his own room. Instead, he stood in the doorway of the nursery, clutching his pillow. "Can you stay with us tonight, Dad?" he asked. "Henry, you don't need," Adam began, but his son cut him off. "Please," Henry said, his voice breaking. "Just this once." Adam sighed, relenting. He grabbed a blanket and lay on the floor beside Henry in the nursery. The house was quiet, the soft hum of Charlotte's monitor the only sound. For a while, Adam began to think his fears were unfounded. But then, around 2 a.m., Henry shook his shoulder. "Dad," he whispered, his face pale in the dim glow of the night light. "It's back." Adam sat up, his heart pounding. "What is?" Henry pointed to the wall behind the crib. Adam strained to listen, his ears catching it after a moment. A faint, rhythmic sound, like scratching, but deliberate. This time, it wasn't coming from the base of the wall, it was higher, near the ceiling. He froze, his breath shallow. The sound wasn't just scratching. It was shifting as though something or someone was moving inside the wall. "Go back to sleep," Adam said softly, his voice trembling. But Henry didn't move. He stayed sitting, his eyes locked on the wall, as though daring it to reveal its secrets. The next morning, Adam didn't wait. As soon as Henry left for school, he bought a small security camera and set it up in Charlotte's room. The camera's position covered the entire nursery, including the crib and the wall where he had found the hidden panel. Emily noticed him fiddling with the device and frowned. "What's that for?" "Just an extra precaution," Adam said, trying to sound casual. "You know, in case we hear anything unusual." Emily's brow furrowed, but she let it go. Yet, as she carried Charlotte out of the room, she felt a prickling sense of unease. The tension in Adam's shoulders, the way he avoided her questions. It all felt wrong. That night, Adam sat in the living room with the camera feed open on his laptop. He stared at the screen, determined to catch whatever was lurking in their walls. For hours, the nursery was quiet. Charlotte slept peacefully, the faint glow of her night light illuminating the crib. Adam began to feel foolish, his paranoia ebbing. He was just about to close the laptop when something caught his eye. The blanket covering Charlotte moved. Adam leaned closer, his pulse racing. The motion was subtle, like a hand brushing lightly over the fabric. But there was no one there. Then came the sound, the low, deliberate scraping against the wall. Adam's grip on the laptop tightened. The noise wasn't random. It was purposeful, and it was getting louder. The next morning, Adam reviewed the footage from the nursery camera, hoping to explain the events of the previous night. For hours, the video showed nothing unusual. Charlotte sleeping peacefully, the faint glow of the nightlight illuminating her tiny crib. Then, just after 2 a.m., the blanket on Charlotte's crib shifted. It wasn't a dramatic movement, but unmistakable, like a hand brushing lightly across the fabric. Adam replayed the moment several times, zooming in, searching for any indication of what could have caused it. There was nothing. No shadow, no hand, just the blanket moving on its own. Adam spent the rest of the morning reinforcing the nursery. He installed additional locks on the window and added a latch to the inside of the door. He double-checked the panel in the wall, ensuring it was still sealed. Despite his efforts, he couldn't shake the image of the blanket moving. By afternoon, Adam's anxiety was too much to contain. He found Emily in the kitchen, rocking Charlotte in her arms. "We need to talk," he said, his tone clipped. Emily raised an eyebrow. "What's going on?" Adam hesitated, then took a deep breath. "There's something in the house. Or someone." Her eyes narrowed. "What do you mean, someone?" Adam led her to the living room, opening his laptop to show her the footage. He played the clip of the blanket shifting, pausing at the exact moment it moved. "Look," he said, pointing at the screen. "Do you see that?" Emily stared at the screen, her brow furrowing. "It's just the blanket." "No," Adam said firmly. "Something moved it. Watch again." He played the clip again, zooming in to emphasize the motion. Emily's face paled, her grip on Charlotte tightening. "What are you saying, Adam? That someone's in her room?" Adam nodded slowly. "I found a hidden panel in the nursery. It leads to a small space behind the wall. Someone's been living there. I sealed it up, but I don't think they've left." Emily's breath caught, and she instinctively drew Charlotte closer. "You've known this? For how long?" "I found it a few days ago," Adam admitted. "I didn't want to scare you until I was sure." Emily's voice rose, her fear spilling into anger. "You didn't want to scare me? Adam, there's a stranger in our house. You should have told me the second you found it." "I didn't want to jump to conclusions," Adam said defensively. "I thought maybe it was old, abandoned." Emily shook her head, her face pale with panic. We need to call the police. Now. Adam hesitated, running a hand through his hair. What if we're overreacting? What if it really is just old noise or something settling? Emily glared at him, her eyes blazing. Overreacting? Adam, our daughter is in danger. Our son has been terrified for weeks. How can you not see this? That night, Adam finally agreed to keep watch with Emily in the nursery. They sat side by side on the floor, the camera feed open on Adam's laptop. Charlotte slept soundly in her crib, her soft breaths the only sound in the room. For hours, nothing happened. The house was quiet, the tension in the room growing heavier with every passing minute. Then, just after midnight, it began. A faint, rhythmic sound echoed through the room. At first, Adam thought it was coming from the wall near the crib, just as it had the night before. But Emily's hand shot out, gripping his arm. Listen, she whispered. The sound wasn't confined to the wall this time. It moved, soft, deliberate scratches, traveling through the floorboards and into the ceiling. It's not just the nursery, Emily murmured, her voice shaking. It's everywhere. Adam's heart raced as he scanned the room, his flashlight darting from corner to corner. But the source of the sound remained elusive, the echoes shifting and distorting as though the house itself was alive. Emily turned to him, her face pale. Henry was right, she said. It's not just his imagination. Adam swallowed hard, his mind reeling. For the first time, he realized the full weight of what Henry had been trying to tell them. Whatever or whoever was in their house wasn't just hiding. It was watching. Adam couldn't ignore it any longer. He needed answers. The strange sounds, the movement in the walls, the unsettling footage from the camera. It all pointed to something, or someone, hiding in their home. That morning, while Emily took Charlotte and Henry to the park, Adam pried open the sealed panel in the nursery wall. The opening was dark and cramped, the smell of dampness and stale air seeping out. He slid a flashlight inside and began crawling through the narrow passage. The tunnel stretched farther than he'd imagined, its walls crudely carved from the house's foundation. Bits of debris littered the floor, crumbled plaster, broken wood, and, chillingly, a small, rusted spoon. Eventually, the tunnel opened into a hidden chamber. The space was just large enough to crouch in, and what Adam found there made his blood run cold. A dirty, flattened mattress lay against one wall, surrounded by piles of discarded food wrappers and water bottles. Scattered toys, old, faded, and broken, were strewn across the floor. A child's plastic doll sat propped against the wall, its once cheerful face cracked and smeared with grime. Someone had lived here, for months, maybe even years. Meanwhile, back at the house, Emily was on edge. She couldn't stop pacing the nursery, keeping a close watch on Charlotte as she lay in her crib. Every sound in the house made her jump, her mind racing with fears she couldn't suppress. She hated that Adam had gone into the tunnel alone, but she couldn't deny the relief of having Henry and Charlotte close. Her thoughts were interrupted by a muffled sound. A thud, faint but distinct, coming from the direction of the living room. Emily froze, her heart pounding. The sound came again, louder this time. And then, Henry's muffled voice calling out, "Mom, help!" Panic surged through her as she scooped Charlotte into her arms and darted into the hallway. She reached the living room just in time to see a shadow flicker across the far wall, moving quickly toward the basement stairs. "Adam!" Emily screamed, her voice shaking with terror. "Someone's in the house." Adam had just begun documenting the hidden room with his phone when he heard Emily's scream. He bolted back through the tunnel, his breath ragged as he scrambled to the nursery. Emily stood in the hallway clutching Charlotte, her face pale. "Henry!" she cried, pointing toward the living room. "He's in there!" Adam rushed into the room, his eyes scanning wildly. Henry was standing near the couch, his small body trembling. "He went that way," Henry whispered, pointing toward the basement door. Adam didn't hesitate. He flung open the basement door, gripping a flashlight in one hand and a hammer in the other. He descended the steps slowly, his heart hammering in his chest. But the basement was empty. Whoever had been there was gone. The family barricaded themselves in the master bedroom, Adam pushing furniture against the door while Emily called the police. She kept her voice low, her hands shaking as she described the events to the dispatcher. "Please hurry," she whispered. "We have children in the house." Minutes felt like hours as they waited. Adam stood guard at the door, the hammer still clutched in his hand, while Emily sat on the bed with Charlotte and Henry. The children were silent, their wide eyes darting between their parents. When the police arrived, Adam unblocked the door and let them in. Two officers, their hands on their holstered weapons, quickly began searching the house. A third officer stayed with the family, asking them questions about what had happened. It didn't take long for the officers to find the tunnel. Adam led them to the nursery, explaining what he had discovered earlier that day. One of the officers climbed into the opening, returning several minutes later with a grim expression. "There's no one here now," he said, "but it's clear someone's been living down there. This isn't new. There are signs they've been here for a long time." Emily paled, clutching Charlotte tighter. "What kind of signs?" The officer hesitated. "Personal items, food wrappers, there's even a mattress. Whoever it is, they've been using this place as a hideout." "Did you check the basement?" Adam asked. The officer nodded. "We didn't find anyone. If they were here, they're long gone." The police promised to keep investigating, but the family's sense of safety was shattered. That night, they stayed at a nearby motel, too afraid to remain in the house. As Emily rocked Charlotte to sleep, she kept replaying the moment she had seen the shadow moving through the house. It hadn't been a figment of her imagination. Someone had been there, someone who had come far too close to her children. Adam sat by the window, staring out at the parking lot. "I shouldn't have waited," he muttered. "I should have told you about the panel the second I found it." Emily glanced at him, her expression softening despite her fear. "You were trying to protect us," she said quietly. "But now we have to face this together. Whoever that person is, they're dangerous." Adam nodded, gripping the edge of the windowsill. "I won't let them hurt our family," he said, "no matter what it takes." With the police fully involved, Adam and Emily began to feel a small measure of relief. Officers worked tirelessly over the next few days, collecting evidence from the hidden tunnels and searching the surrounding neighborhood for any signs of the intruder. The idea of a stranger using their home as a secret shelter was horrifying, but at least now they weren't facing it alone. The breakthrough came when detectives identified the man through fingerprints found on the discarded food wrappers and items in the hidden space. His name was Eric Carter, a former tenant of the house who had been evicted nearly a decade earlier. After losing his job and with nowhere else to go, he had returned to the only place he had ever called home, living unseen within its walls. When the news reached Adam and Emily, it left them cold. "He's been here all this time?" Emily asked the officer sitting across from them, her voice trembling. Charlotte squirmed in her arms, her innocence a stark contrast to the horrors they were learning. "It's likely he came back gradually," the officer explained. "Based on what we found, he's been living in the tunnels for at least a year, maybe longer. The mattress and food were relatively new, but some of the toys we found are much older, possibly things he salvaged from before." Adam clenched his fists. "And you still haven't found him?" The officer shook his head. "We're doing everything we can. He knows the area well, and if he's hiding, it's going to take time to track him down. In the meantime, we've sealed the tunnels and added reinforcements to the house. He won't be able to get back in." Emily looked down at Charlotte, her stomach churning. "But he's still out there." "Yes," the officer admitted, "but you're not in immediate danger." It's clear he was trying to stay hidden. "There's no evidence he was violent or planning to harm anyone." Emily's gaze darkened. "He didn't have to harm anyone to put us in danger. He was watching my children." The true horror of the situation came to light when Henry was interviewed by one of the detectives. At first, the boy was quiet, his small hands twisting nervously in his lap. But with gentle encouragement, he began to open up. "I knew someone was there," Henry said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I heard him at night. He'd move in the walls, and sometimes he'd come to Charlotte's room." The detective leaned forward slightly. "You mean he came into the room? Did you see him?" Henry nodded, his face pale. He didn't stay long. He would just stand by the crib and look at her. I think he was trying to make sure she was okay. The words sent a chill down the detective's spine. Did he ever talk to you, Henry? Or try to touch Charlotte? Henry shook his head quickly. No, he just watched. When Adam and Emily were told about Henry's account, they were horrified. The idea that Eric had been in such close proximity to their children, watching them standing over Charlotte's crib, was almost too much to bear. He was in the room with them, Emily said, her voice breaking. With our baby. How did we not notice? Adam sat beside her, his face drawn and pale. Because we didn't think it was possible, he said bitterly. Who would? The following days were a blur of activity. The police worked to secure the property, boarding up every access point to the hidden tunnels and reinforcing the house's structural vulnerabilities. They installed motion sensors and cameras at the family's request, though the thought of returning to the home still made Emily's stomach churn. Adam tried to focus on practical solutions, securing the home, making plans for therapy for Henry, but his mind kept circling back to one thing: the hidden space, the small mattress, the tattered toys. He couldn't stop picturing Eric sitting there in the dark, silently listening to their lives unfold above him. We should sell the house, Emily said one evening as they sat in their motel room, the children asleep in the adjoining room. I can't live there anymore. Not after this. Adam nodded slowly. I know, but who would buy it after hearing this? Emily looked at him, her eyes hollow. Then we tear it down. The search for Eric continued, but he seemed to have vanished. Adam and Emily took solace in the increased security measures, but neither could shake the lingering fear that he was still nearby, watching and waiting. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of wind outside, set their nerves on edge. Henry remained quiet, though he seemed lighter now that the truth was out. Emily noticed him watching over Charlotte less obsessively, though he still insisted on checking on her at night. Just to be sure, he told Emily one evening, his small face solemn. You're such a good brother, Emily whispered, kissing his forehead. We're so proud of you. But as Henry lay in bed that night, his gaze lingered on the ceiling, his thoughts troubled. He couldn't tell his parents everything, not yet, because deep down he was certain of one thing. Eric wasn't gone. Days after the harrowing discoveries in their home, the police located Eric Carter in an abandoned warehouse a few miles from the neighborhood. The place was littered with makeshift bedding, empty food containers, and other remnants of his transient lifestyle. Officers approached cautiously, but Eric didn't resist arrest. He seemed almost relieved, surrendering without a word. When Adam and Emily received the news, they rushed to the station, desperate for answers. A detective briefed them on Eric's background, a man who had fallen on hard times after losing his job and family. His mental health had deteriorated, and without support or resources, he had returned to the only place he knew, the house he once lived in. During his interrogation, Eric confessed to living in the tunnels. He spoke haltingly, his words fragmented by years of isolation. I didn't mean to scare them, he murmured, his voice raspy. I just needed somewhere to stay. When pressed about his visits to the nursery, Eric's eyes grew distant. The baby, he said softly. She reminded me of my daughter. She was so small, so perfect. His voice cracked as he continued. My little girl. She passed a long time ago. But when I saw Charlotte, it was like she was back. I just wanted to see her, to make sure she was safe. Adam and Emily sat across the table, their emotions warring within them. On one hand, they felt a wave of anger. This man had invaded their home, shattered their peace, and put their children in danger. But on the other hand, his pain was evident, his grief palpable. You had no right, Adam said finally, his voice trembling with rage. No right to come into our home, to watch my children. Eric didn't respond. He just lowered his head, his shoulders slumping under the weight of his guilt. The police assured Adam and Emily that Eric would be taken to a facility where he could receive the mental health treatment he desperately needed. He's not a threat to you anymore, the detective said. But we understand if you're still uncomfortable staying in the house. Uncomfortable didn't begin to cover it. That night, as Adam and Emily lay in their motel room, the conflicting emotions bubbled to the surface. "I don't know how to feel," Emily admitted. "I'm angry, but..." He wasn't trying to hurt her. He was just broken. Adam sighed, running a hand through his hair. It doesn't matter what his intentions were. He was in our house watching our kids. That's enough to know we need to do more. The next week was spent reinforcing their home. They replaced every lock, sealed every vent, and added high-end security cameras both inside and outside. Adam installed motion sensors and a new alarm system that would alert them to even the faintest disturbance. No part of the house was left untouched. "Nothing like this will ever happen again," Adam said as he finished installing the last camera in the nursery. His tone was firm, but Emily could see the exhaustion in his eyes. They spent their first night back in the house on edge, jumping at every creak and groan. But the silence was uninterrupted, and by morning, the tension had eased slightly. Henry, too, began to relax. With Eric no longer a threat, he seemed lighter, as though a weight had been lifted from his small shoulders. He returned to sleeping in his own room, though he still insisted on checking on Charlotte before bed. "Just one look," he'd say, padding into the nursery to peek over the crib. Charlotte would coo or giggle, and Henry would smile, satisfied that she was safe. Emily watched these moments with a mixture of sadness and pride. "He shouldn't have had to go through this," she said one evening as she and Adam stood in the doorway, watching Henry say goodnight to Charlotte. "But he's stronger because of it." Adam nodded, his hand resting on Emily's shoulder. "He's a good brother," he said quietly, "and we'll make sure he never has to face anything like this again." Though the house was secure, and the man responsible was gone, the sense of vulnerability lingered. Every night, Adam double-checked the locks and cameras. Emily kept the baby monitor close, her ears attuned to every sound. But life began to settle, slowly but surely. Henry's laughter returned, and Charlotte grew stronger and more curious each day. The family was healing, though the scars of what they had endured would never fully fade. One evening, as Henry tucked Charlotte in, he whispered, "I'll always protect you, Charlie. Promise?" Emily, standing unseen in the hallway, felt her heart swell. Whatever fears remained, one thing was certain. Henry's love for his sister was unshakable, and for now they were safe. In the weeks following the incident, Adam and Emily couldn't stop thinking about how it all began. The signs had been there, plain as day. Henry's insistence on staying in Charlotte's room, his fear of leaving her alone, his whispered warnings about something being in the walls. "He knew," Emily said one evening as she and Adam sat together in the living room, the house quiet around them. "Henry knew something was wrong, and we brushed it off. We told ourselves he was just being a kid." Adam nodded, guilt heavy in his chest. "He was trying to tell us, and we didn't listen. If we had, maybe we could have stopped this sooner." "But he didn't give up," Emily said softly, a small smile forming despite the weight of her words. "Even when we didn't take him seriously, he kept protecting her. He was braver than we were." The realization shifted something in the way they approached their roles as parents. Emily began spending more one-on-one time with Henry, creating a space where he felt safe to share his thoughts and feelings. They played games together, took walks, and talked about everything from his favorite books to his worries. One afternoon, as they sat together in the park, Emily asked, "Do you remember the first time you thought something was wrong with the house?" Henry hesitated, then nodded. "It was a sound," he said, "scratching, like someone was trying to get out. At first I thought it was a mouse, but then it got louder, and I knew it wasn't just me. It was real." Emily reached out, brushing a hand over his hair. "You were so brave, Henry. Braver than I realized. And I'm so sorry we didn't listen sooner." "It's okay," Henry said, though his voice was quiet. "I just wanted to keep her safe." Adam, meanwhile, wrestled with his own guilt. He replayed every decision he had made, every moment he had dismissed Henry's concerns. The thought of how close they had come to danger haunted him. One evening, as he sat in the nursery watching Charlotte sleep, Henry appeared in the doorway. "Dad," he asked, "are you mad at me?" Adam's heart twisted. "Mad at you? No, buddy. Why would you think that?" Henry stepped into the room, fidgeting with the hem of his shirt. "Because I didn't tell you everything. I saw him, Dad. I saw him standing by the crib, and I didn't say anything. I thought you'd be mad." Adam stood and crouched in front of his son, placing his hands on Henry's shoulders. "Henry, listen to me. You were scared, and you did everything you could to protect your sister. You were braver than I could have ever asked you to be. I'm not mad. I'm proud of you." Henry's eyes welled up, and he threw his arms around Adam's neck. "I just wanted to make sure she was okay," he whispered. "You did, Henry," Adam said, holding him tightly. "You kept her safe." The ordeal brought the family closer in ways they hadn't anticipated. Henry and Charlotte's bond, already strong, grew deeper. Henry continued to check on her every night, though now it was less out of fear and more out of love. Charlotte, too young to understand what had happened, lit up whenever her brother was near, her giggles filling the house with a sense of peace. For Adam and Emily, the experience was a stark reminder of the importance of trusting their children's instincts. They began to listen more attentively, to take Henry's concerns seriously, no matter how small they might seem. One evening, as the family sat together on the couch, Henry cradling Charlotte on his lap, Emily looked around the room and felt a swell of gratitude. "We've been through a lot," she said, her voice soft, "but we're stronger for it." Adam nodded, his arm around her shoulders. "We are, and we'll never let anything like that happen again." Henry looked up, his expression serious. "And if it does, we'll stop it. Together." Emily smiled, pulling both children close. "That's right. Together." In the quiet moments that followed, the family sat in silence, the weight of their shared experience settling into something softer, something they could carry without fear. The house, once a place of uncertainty, now felt safe again. Not because of locks or cameras, but because they knew they could face anything as long as they were together. Over the next few months, Adam and Emily focused on rebuilding, not just the physical space of their home, but the sense of safety that had been stolen. Contractors arrived to remove the tunnels and seal the hidden chambers for good. Adam supervised every step of the process, determined to erase every trace of Eric Carter's presence. The nursery was the last space to be addressed. The wall that once held the panel was reinforced and rebuilt, and the room was repainted in warm, calming tones. Adam even installed shelves in the spot where the hidden panel had been, filling them with books and small toys for Charlotte. "This isn't just her nursery anymore," Adam told Emily as they arranged the final touches. "It's her safe space. No shadows, no hiding places. Just love." Emily smiled, though her eyes glistened with tears. "She won't remember any of it," she said, stroking Charlotte's soft curls as the baby gurgled happily in her arms. "But we will, and we'll make sure it never happens again." Though the physical reminders of the invasion were gone, the emotional scars lingered. Adam often found himself double-checking the locks at night, and Emily still jumped at unexpected noises. But instead of letting fear take over, they leaned into their newfound commitment to openness and trust. Conversations with Henry became a nightly ritual. After tucking him in, Adam or Emily would sit on the edge of his bed, asking about his day, his thoughts, and his worries. They wanted him to know that his voice mattered and that they would always listen. One night, as Emily kissed Henry's forehead, he said, "I'm not scared anymore, Mom." Emily paused, her hand resting lightly on his blanket. "You're not." Henry shook his head. "Because I know you and Dad will always protect us. And if anything bad comes again, I'll protect Charlotte, too." Emily's heart swelled with pride. "You already did, sweetheart," she whispered. "And you were so brave." Adam, too, found himself reflecting on the lessons of the ordeal. The guilt of not acting sooner still weighed on him, but he channeled it into action. He worked tirelessly to make the house a fortress, not just for the physical safety of his family, but for their emotional security as well. He became the first to ask questions, to check in on Henry, and to support Emily whenever her anxieties surfaced. "I didn't realize how much I was missing," he admitted to her one evening as they sat together on the porch, the children asleep inside. Henry tried to tell us, and I ignored him. I won't make that mistake again. Emily squeezed his hand. We both missed it, she said, but we learned, and we're stronger now. As time passed, the family found their way back to normalcy. Henry's nightmares faded, replaced by the vibrant curiosity of childhood. Charlotte grew more energetic and curious, toddling around the house with her brother always close by. The two shared an unbreakable bond, one forged in the crucible of fear but strengthened by love. One afternoon, Adam watched from the doorway as Henry read to Charlotte in her newly decorated room. The baby clapped her hands, giggling as her brother animatedly flipped through the pages of her favorite picture book. She adores him, Emily said, stepping beside Adam. He's her protector, Adam replied, pride evident in his voice. Always will be. Though life resumed, the memory of what had happened lingered as a quiet reminder. It wasn't something they spoke of often, but it shaped the way they approached each day. The house, once a symbol of terror, had become a place of resilience, a testament to what they had survived and how they had grown stronger together. Years later, when Henry and Charlotte were older, Adam and Emily told them the full story. They spoke not of fear but of courage, highlighting how Henry's instincts and determination had saved them all. That's why we always listen now, Adam said, his voice steady. Because what you feel, what you notice, it matters. Could protect us again someday. Henry, now old enough to understand the weight of those words, nodded solemnly. I'll always be watching out for her, he said, glancing at Charlotte, who grinned up at him with her usual adoration. The family moved forward, carrying the lessons of the past but not letting them define their future. Their bond grew stronger, rooted in trust, communication, and an unspoken promise to protect one another no matter what. The house, once filled with shadows and fear, now radiated warmth and love. And though the memories of what had happened never fully faded, they served as a powerful reminder of what the family had overcome together.